Welcome back to Whence Came You, a free Masonic podcast featuring research papers and discussions related to Freemasonry. This is episode 179. In the news, I just wanted to mention that I hope you all enjoyed the last Masonic Roundtable, which was called What Next? And it really explored a lot of the ideas and suggestions rather, of what you do in your next step after you've become a Master Mason. They did a tremendous job, and I just can't emphasize that enough. So if you haven't checked it out, please check it out on iTunes, or you can watch it right there on YouTube. I did also want to mention, I hope you all come to watch the Masonic Roundtable next week, which is a couple days after this episode comes out. It will be episode number 52, and we are having a really cool show. It's going to be about Prince Hall. It's a subject that is really cool, tons of history, and so much involved within that topic. I hope you guys all tune in and listen to it. And watch us live on Tuesday, 10/9 Central. Right now, Masonic Week is going on. I know Brother Todd Creason is having a blast with Brother Greg Knott, and also Jason Richards is there. So we actually have 3 contributors of the Midnight Freemasons blog at Masonic Week. So if you see them, stop them and say hello. Make them take a picture with you. I know they would love to. I did want to say that I am currently working on the Ancient Accepted Scottish Rites Master Craftsman number 2. As everybody has pointed out, it is much harder. It is not so plain, and the essay questions are definitely a lot deeper. If you have taken Master Craftsman 1, you know that your essay questions are required in order for you to get your pin and all that good stuff. And your essay questions are always, what did you really learn while taking this quiz? And that was it. In Master Craftsman 2, there are real essay questions they're asking you. So I would definitely say prepare yourself if you're getting ready to start Master Craftsman 2. And for those of you who have held on to it for a little while, I know why. So we'll get right into this week's paper. Right after the paper, we're going into a segment of Masonic history. And I'm really excited because Illustrious Brother Steven L. Harrison, author of Freemasonry Crosses the Mississippi and Tales from the Craft, both available on Amazon, is doing our history Masonic segment this week. And I can't thank him enough for being able to join us. So this week's paper is called Parable of the Cherry Tree by Robert A. Hochsted, past Grand Master of Michigan. In March of 1967, at a seminar of the Ancient Arabic Order of Nobles of the Mystic Shrine, this paper was presented by Robert A. Hochsted, the Grand Master of Masons in Michigan. Most Worshipful Brother Hochsted now serves as chairman of the Executive Commission of the Masonic Services Association. The original title of the paper was Building Relations with the Blue Lodge. At first thought, the topic might seem rather meaningless, for building relations between the Ancient Arabic Order nobles of the Mystic Shrine and the Masonic Lodge is, in effect, building a relationship between a man and himself, since we are all members of the same body. Yet, and all too often, the right hand knoweth not what the left hand is doing, and, even though we be members of the same parent body, misunderstandings, a lack of communication do exist. It is in the hope that a closer rapport may exist, and in the firm conviction that it should exist, that seminars such as this are called, and it is my pleasure as the Grand Master of Masons to participate therein. In the spare time left over after serving the Grand Lodge, I am engaged in fruit processing in northern Michigan, and it is from this experience that I would draw the symbolic picture of our fraternity in the specific application to the subject under discussion. We in Michigan grow the finest sweet cherries in the world, largely because of the manner in which we prepare the tree. The nursery stock carefully chosen is nurtured and tendered with constant attention until the main trunk has attained growth and vigor. It is then pruned and directed into 2 or more principal branches growing outward to provide the greatest exposure to the elements and the largest area on the outer or bearing surface. Consider, if you will, how closely this parallels our Masonic fraternity. We institute a new lodge, or bend our attentions to one already existent. In the beginning, we give it our full attention and nurture it through the work of the brothers in securing petitions for membership. Through this devotion, the lodge flourishes and attains growth and vigor. It is at this stage, if not before, that the pruning starts, and dedicated and zealous men direct the brethren into the divergent paths of the Scottish Rite, the York Rite, and the myriad of other offshoots of Freemasonry. With this, per se, I have no quarrel. since there should be enough workers in the quarries of the craft to necessitate additional outlets for their talents. But let us get back to the tree, which is now in the full flower of its maturity, and let us consider particularly the most spectacular of the divergent branches. It is on this branch that the blossoms are thickest in the spring, as it displays its beauties for all the world to see and provide nectar in bounteous supply for the bees which are here assembled. Here, too, will hang in greatest profusion the fruits of the labor of the tree, fruit which will furnish food for the birds of the air, and will, in harvest, be plucked and utilized by man for his sustenance and pleasure. It is to this branch that I would compare the ancient Arabic order of nobles of the mystic shrine. For of all segments of our fraternity, certainly the shrine is the most colorful, and in its pageantry it displays its beauties before the world, as it furnishes the nectar of fellowship and pleasure to the workers in shrindom. It is in the labor of the mystic circle that we find, too, the finest fruits of human endeavor, as to its outstretched arms are drawn the halt, the lame, and the burned, to be restored to health and to take flight, like the birds, from pain and the shackles of the crippled to the heights of the joy and the potential of full and rich life. Again, consider our literal tree, now in the fullness of its harvest. Observe how the several branches deliberately separated are bending away from each other with their load of fruit. It is now that strong wind, a chance blow, a lightning stroke, or even the preoccupation of the tree itself in increasing its fruit may be the cause of stretching the fabric of the tree past its breaking point, and the branch may tear away and crash to the ground, there to die. Similarly, in our symbolic tree, again deliberately separated as its branches, the strong wind of unfavorable publicity, the chance blow of a thoughtless remark, the lightning stroke of an ill-considered deed or proposal, or the preoccupation with the increasing of membership and activities in any one branch without the corresponding increase in the parent lodge, may so imbalance the fabric of our craft that one or all of its branches may fall away, or even the lodge itself wither from the drain on its resources. In our trees, we could possibly avoid this danger by training the tree into one main stem, with smaller branches emanating from it. Thus, too, with our fraternity, there are those who say that any of the appendant bodies must be so closely entwined with the lodge that, to all intents and purposes, that might as well be one. To do this, I do not subscribe. It is my firm conviction that the several parts of our order should be separated, and that, while all, of course, must stem from and owe allegiance to the lodge, it is of equal importance that they be allowed to independently flourish and to bring forth their own individual harvest of charity and good works. And actually, the good orchardist preserves his trees by propping up the heavy laden branches and by tying the several branches together for mutual support. This I propose for our symbolic tree, and while the things of which I shall speak are directed primarily to you as fellow nobles, they may be equally applied to any of the other principal branches of our craft. I shall dwell but briefly on the props, as they are, at best, only a temporary and sometimes insecure help, and it is in the ties that we must place our trust. In general, the props which we employ might be considered to be those things which are promulgated by the grand bodies or by the temples as a unit. In this category would be the formation of shrine degree teams who are available to the lodges. This is of tremendous value in cementing relations with the lodge affected, and I most heartily endorse this program. I class it as a quote-unquote prop, only because with changing personnel it may well be abandoned by a temple. Similarly, in the respect that it is temporary in effect, would be the shrine ceremonials and the publicity attendant thereon. Certainly there cannot help but be an awareness of the occasion among the members of the lodge in the area, and if done in good taste, it cannot help but reflect with credit on the fraternity, and may well introduce Master Masons to wish to belong to such an obviously fine organization. On the Imperial Council level, there can be no greater service to humanity than the programs to care for the children in the service in the several hospitals maintained by the shrine. I am sure that every Master Mason joins with me in his pride at being a member of the great fraternity, which is the father to the child which has provided the most magnificent humanitarian charities, and on every occasion at which the hospitals are publicized. I am sure that each of us basks in the reflected credit which our relationship to the shrine makes possible. Just as the ties which bind together our literal tree are the permanent and most effective means of preserving the tree, so are the figurative ties that bind our fraternity into one whole the permanent and most effective means of promoting and preserving the fabric of our craft and of illuminating the warp and woof of the tapestry which is our fraternal life. Some of these ties are traditional and form the foundation of the bonds which join us together in unity and brotherhood. Of such is the relationship between the shrine and the rites in Masonry, which requires membership in the Knights Templar or that a petitioner be a 32nd degree Scottish Rite Mason. A single note here, aside from the paper, this is no longer a requirement by the shrine. You do not have to be a Knight Templar or a 32nd degree Scottish Rite Mason. Continuing the paper. In the final analysis, however, each and every tie is composed of a weaving together of many individual fibers and may be best represented in our case as being constituted by the combined efforts and effects of the countless numbers of individual Masons who collectively form the institution we know as the Shrine. It is then through individuals that we must look to the building of relations, even though the direction may well come from the echelon of officers within the respective bodies. By the same token, it is the individual noble who is responsible for some unfortunate incidents which have occurred within the scope of my knowledge, and which give ammunition to the brother who claims allegiance only to the lodge. As nobles, let us be always circumspect in our conduct. On the positive side, we ought to attend our lodges and evince an active interest in its affairs, develop a genuine interest in the welfare of the lodge, in the education of its members, and in the promotion of petitions for membership in the lodge, remembering always that it is from the lodge originally that shrine members must come. Finally, my brethren, let us recognize that all our relations must be on a personal, one-to-one basis, and that each of us has a responsibility to strive not only for fraternal relationships within the framework of our several Masonic bodies, but also that, as Masons, we must have a one-to-one relationship with our Creator, such that by faith we may forge an instrument of peace, of hope, and above all, of charity, to the end that is this fraternity, with all its parts, may justify its existence and be a force for the right in this troubled world. By doing so, you will have built the best possible relationship with your Blue Lodge. All right, now comes the point in the show where I ask you to support the show. You can find many ways to support this show via our website, wcypodcast.com. We have three main ways of supporting the show through our applications, which are available on Android, Apple, and the Windows Phone. They give you the papers we read every week, a wallpaper that is Masonically themed for your mobile device, and of course, streaming your episodes. Additionally, you can do some shopping on either onit.com or freemasonryart.com using the coupon code WCY, and you'll get 10% off either one of them. And last but not least, direct donation through PayPal. So whether you donate $1 or $2, that all comes back to the show, and we use that to produce listener-supported education through what we call WCY Media. So thank you in advance for all of your contributions and your help. Next is our historical segment with Illustrious Brother Steven L. Harrison. Enjoy.
Years ago, when I was still an entered apprentice, I traveled on business to a company where I had some work to do with another Freemason. He had, in fact, been the potentate of his local shrine. As sometimes happens in situations like that, we hit it off pretty well, and although he had gone a lot farther than me at the time, we found we had a lot in common just by our connection through the fraternity. One day, as we were heading out to lunch, we walked through the parking lot at his plant. Suddenly, he stopped and pointed to a square and compasses on the windshield of a car. "You'll notice things like that," he told me. "In fact, you'll actually start looking for them." He was right. I do notice them. I do look for them. I think to some extent we all do. On a few occasions where I've parked beside a guy with one of those emblems, we've exchanged greetings. We're complete strangers, but we know we share that bond. On one such occasion, my wife Carolyn and I were in a new town driving around. Among other things, we discovered a beautiful, ornate church. We decided to attend the next morning. The following day, we put on, as they say, our Sunday finest and headed for the church. It was a wonderful old building made of limestone with carvings and gizmos everywhere. Inside, Everything was new to us, but somehow familiar, comfortable. The greeters were quick to recognize us as visitors and just as quick to welcome us as if we were old friends. They walked us down the hall and into the sanctuary. As I entered, a colossal pipe organ, too large, too magnificent for this small, unfamiliar town, filled my field of vision. The breathtaking organ gazed down upon old, elaborate pews. On top of everything else, the sanctuary was filled with Christmas decorations. Garland hung from the rafters. Stars twinkled. A manger flanked a huge, over-decorated Christmas tree. This was a house of God. Carolyn and I slid into our seats. The choir boomed, announcing the start of the service. We sang, we prayed, we greeted each other. We listened. In a quiet moment, I sat back and simply admired the place. Suddenly, while I was soaking it all in, I felt something hit my right shoulder. I looked aside, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw a hand. I moved back for a better view and saw the hand was holding a piece of paper. I took the paper and opened it and read. It started, "I saw the square and compasses on your lapel." He told me his name, his wife's name, his lodge, the offices he had held. I had his entire Masonic CV scribbled on the note in front of me. At the end, he asked, "What about you?" On the back of the note, I told him about Carolyn and myself, my lodge, the office I held in line, the parts of the ritual I knew and performed in the lodge. I handed the note back to him. In a few minutes, here it came again. Did I know so-and-so? Why were we in town? I answered his questions and asked a little bit about him. There we sat, two grown men in this magnificent house of God, in this inspiring service, passing notes like a couple of grade school kids and becoming friends, all because of a simple square and compasses pen and the bond, the brotherhood it signified. When you're a Mason in the company of Masons, there are no strangers. We as brothers love this fraternity and are interested in what happens within it, and also interested in the lives of other brothers. Robert Johnson and the Whence podcast have afforded me with an opportunity to share some of those stories with you. Some involve world-changing events. Some are nearly inconsequential. But they are all interesting because they involve our brothers and our fraternity. In episodes to come, we'll look at things like this: the fraternity, its history, the men, and yes, women, who have shaped it. Come along for the ride. For the WCY podcast, I'm Steve Harrison with the Masonic Minute.
I hope you enjoyed that segment. Hopefully, Brother Steve Harrison will continue to provide us with some pieces here and there. We will also hopefully be working something out with Worshipful Brother Jeff Henson, who will be providing us with some as well. And he might be focusing more on Masonic conspiracies and kind of busting those. So, this week's Famous Freemason, it's a really short one because I really couldn't find much about this guy at all. However, I found what he did to become famous quite impressive. So it is Michael Lamont, who was the first man ever to be fired out of a cannon, and he was a member of Mecca Shrine in New York. So that's that. That's it for this week. So please find us on Facebook, find us on Twitter at Whence Came You, check us out on Google Plus at the email address wcypodcast@gmail.com. You can also email me at that email address if you want to get a hold of me for any reason. You can also get a hold of me at admin@wcypodcast.com. Don't forget to check out the Masonic Roundtable every Tuesday night at 10/9 Central. The Masonic Radio Theater has a new episode coming out, another portion of a comedy that we did, and we had a lot of fun doing that. In fact, my kids even recorded a small part in this next episode. I think you guys will find it very funny. The Midnight Freemasons has some incredible pieces coming out. In fact, next Monday, the day after this comes out, actually, we will have my review of the Master Craftsman Part 1. So I hope you enjoy that as well. I'll talk to you guys all next week. Stay in the level. For Whence, I'm Robert Johnson.